is that this cuts across party lines. So you get into politics a little bit and you say, you know, Democrats and Republicans and independents all agree that the federal government should not be trying this. And also, very few people think that marijuana use leads to violent crime. So that's another difference maybe between how people see this, you know, as an enforcement measure as opposed to what are the ramifications of legalizing it. And they think that Americans think that it does not lead to an increase in violent crime.
That's very interesting, because another one of the statistics that you have is that 69%, it's a lot of people, 69% of those polled think that habitual drug use should be treated as an addiction and not as a criminal matter.
Right, and here we're looking more broadly, and you know, the question was habitual drug use, but you know, this is often a topic of debate, and you know, there's been the war on drugs, and there's been a focus on what do we do to criminalize usage, but Americans are pushing back now and in greater numbers and saying it's a mental health problem, it's an addiction problem, and that it should be treated through the mental health system and the medical system as opposed to the criminal justice system. And that's in lopsided numbers a big thing that we see here too.
It's very, very interesting. Anthony Salvanto, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, turning now to the latest fallout on Bill O'Reilly, who's been fired from Fox News over sexual harassment claims. The so-called king of cable news released a statement saying, quote, "It is tremendously disheartening that we part ways due to completely unfounded claims, but that is the unfortunate reality many of us in the public eye must live with today." The allegations date back to over a decade. The New York Times reported 5 women were paid a total of about $13 million in settlements. Dozens of advertisers dropped the O'Reilly factor once the allegations were revealed. Fox News fired him yesterday, and this comes months after former Fox News chairman and CEO Roger Ailes was ousted over similar harassment claims. There are new details today about the death of former NFL star Aaron Hernandez. Investigators say the 27-year-old may have smoked synthetic marijuana before taking his own life. Hernandez was found hanging in his prison cell yesterday. Tony DeCopel is outside the Correctional Center in Shirley, Massachusetts, with the latest.
Massachusetts State Police and the Department of Corrections are still investigating Hernandez's death in a single-occupant cell in the building behind me. Investigators believe one of the last people to see the 27-year-old alive was a close friend, who is now himself in an isolated cell on suicide watch. When correction officers found Aaron Hernandez hanging in his prison cell just after 3 a.m. Wednesday, they also found an apparent message. Sources tell CBS Boston station WBZ Hernandez had John 3:16 written on his forehead in red marker. That Bible verse says in part, "Whoever believes in Jesus shall not perish but have everlasting life." Hernandez also appeared to have red marker on his hands and feet. Officials say Hernandez hanged himself using a bedsheet attached to his window and tried to block his cell door using objects in the room. His family expressed shock and skepticism, promising their own investigation. In a statement, Hernandez's attorney said there were no conversations or correspondence from Aaron that would have indicated anything like this was possible. And his former agent tweeted, "Absolutely no chance he took his own life." Just 5 days before his death, Hernandez wiped away tears in front of family members after being acquitted of murder in the 2012 shooting deaths of Daniel De Abreu and Zafiro Furtado. Furtado's father appeared at a press conference alongside attorney William Kennedy.
He has a loss that he doesn't think will ever be sort of satisfied, but he wants to see accountability for his son's death.
Hernandez had been serving a life sentence without parole for the 2013 murder of childhood friend Odin Lloyd. Lloyd's family is still pursuing a wrongful death suit against Hernandez, but that could be complicated under a centuries-old Massachusetts law that voids his conviction because he died before he exhausted his appeals. That has not deterred Lloyd's family attorney.
We continue along with the civil case. The wrongful death case continues, and we really should not be affected by this event.
Hernandez died on the very same day his former team, the Patriots, visited the White House to celebrate their Super Bowl victory. His former teammates declined to comment on his death. Anne Marie.
Well, Defense Secretary James Mattis is trying to downplay the confusion over the location of a Navy carrier group. Both the White House and the Pentagon said the USS Carl Vinson was on its way to the Korean Peninsula last week, but at the time it was actually headed in the opposite direction, toward the Australian coast. The carrier group is now scheduled to arrive in waters near the peninsula next week. Secretary Mattis commented on the situation during his trip through the Middle East. He said the U.S. is, quote, doing exactly what we said we were going to do. Mattis is meeting with Egypt's president today before heading to Israel. Protesters in Venezuela are taking to the streets again today. 3 people were killed.